This week, celebrities, including Rihanna, have taken to social media to champion the cause of Cyntoia Brown, who was 16 years old when she shot and killed a man who had taken her to his home and paid her for sex in August of 2004.
Imagine, at the age of 16, being sex trafficked by a pimp named Cutthroat. After days of being repeatedly drugged and raped by different men, you were purchased by a 43-year-old child predator who took you to his home to use you for sex. You end up finding enough courage to fight back and shoot and kill him. This is Cyntoia Brown's story, a scared 16-year-old girl who, as a result, was tried and convicted as an adult and sentenced to life in prison. Should her sentence be revoked? Was this a girl failed by the justice system, or is she a manipulator, deceiving the media for her own gain? Bias and injustice was extremely present throughout the case, where Cyntoia was refused to take the stand to inform the jury of the extreme harsh realities of her life and the psychological harm she'd endured over the 16 years of abuse. The events surrounding Cyntoia's life are clear examples of why she should be freed, as the psychological damage others had inflicted led to her impulsive actions. By the age of 16, Cyntoia was subjected to abuse and neglect in her childhood home, later being moved into an adoptive home where she began taking drugs and was consequently in and out of youth detention facilities. After running away from her adopted home, she met 24-year-old man Cutthroat, who began mentally, physically, and sexually abusing her, stating he would regularly choke, beat, and rape her, also forcing her to prostitution for money. 43-year-old John Allen, after soliciting her for sex, showed her a number of guns he had stored in his home, and when she refused to have sex with him, grew paranoid and fearful that he was going to shoot her, and as they laid in bed in the dark, Allen reached below the bed, and Cyntoia, frightened he was reaching for a gun, shot him. These events easily can be characterized as traumatic or life-threatening that more than likely led to psychological damage. A psychological investigation conducted by Dr. Bruce Perry concluded that when children experience severe trauma, the brainstem/midbrain portion of the child's brain overdevelop that lead to that individual having overdeveloped safety and stress responses, acting more impulsively, explaining Cyntoia's paranoia with Allen and the reason for her impulsive actions. Dr. Perry also explained if there was a lack of emotional attachment during childhood, that individual has the inability to form relationships or trust others, with fear often being expressed and felt without always having an understanding to why. In Cyntoia's childhood neglect, this perfectly explains her inability to connect with her adopted home and her inability to trust that Allen wouldn't hurt her. He was, after all, a 43-year-old man making serious sexual advances on a scared 16-year-old girl. Cyntoia was diagnosed to have borderline personality disorder, as well as fetal alcohol syndrome by the court's own psychiatry. However, during sentencing, these factors were not put into consideration. Cyntoia should have been given the mental help she evidently needed, rather than just leisurely tossing her into a jail cell. Her actions were impulsive, meaning there was a psychological explanation for them, to which she has a psychological explanation. I could see it written all over you, since you already know. This led to her having lack of focus, poor judgment, visual issues, delayed development, and difficulties in thinking, speech, movement, and social skills. Cyntoia was set to fail from the start because of a careless, selfish mother that later went on to neglect and abuse her. During her trial, Cyntoia was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. This characterizes an individual to have severe difficulty managing and regulating emotions and impulses relating to people, with the symptoms ranging from feeling empty, having a low self-esteem, anxiety about relationships, and abandonment. These factors strongly played a role in Cyntoia's life decisions, as well as her impulsive actions within the murder. So why was such an important factor overlooked? This is a clear example of the injustice within the case. In 2016, there was a 20-year-old man named Brock Turner. Originally, he was facing up to 14 years in prison, with prosecutors asking for 6 years. However, he was only sentenced to 6 months of incarceration for raping and sexually assaulting an unconscious girl behind a dumpster, with the judge justifying this decision by saying he was worried a stiffer sentence would have severe impact. How can the justice system justify sentencing a 20-year-old rapist to 6 months of jail time and then sentence a sexually, mentally, and physically abused 16-year-old girl to a life sentence as an adult for shooting a 43-year-old child predator trying to sexually take advantage of her? Imagine, at the age of 16, being sex trafficked by a man named Cutthroat, and after days of being repeatedly drugged and raped by different men, you were purchased by a 43-year-old child predator who took you to his home to use you for sex. You finally get enough courage to fight back and shoot and kill him. This is Cyntoia's story. Should she be released? Was this a girl failed by the justice system, or is she a manipulator, deceiving the media for her own gain? What do you think?